Welcome to the show, ladies and gentlemen, from the garage, the court of public opinion. I'm Jeremy Cordeaux. Thank you for joining us here on Facebook. And Andy Martin, who takes the audio from our Facebook posting here, and he puts it out on Spotify and all the other, what's the expression? Wherever you get your favourite podcast from. Or, to be grammatically correct, from where you ever, you know what I mean. And, of course, we're on Friday morning, tomorrow morning, with a whole stack of guests. I'll tell you about that later. 1 in 4 of our children has not got the verbal skills to communicate properly, even in preschool, primary school, secondary school. They have not got the ability to communicate. 1 in 4. Look, there'll be people, experts, who'll put labels on it. Dyspraxia, very common cause, but not the only one. There are many. This is strange. Many of these problems seem to have arrived accelerating out of nowhere. Could it have anything to do with the arrival of the NDIS? Just asking. I don't understand it. The experts put their finger on the problem but can't say why, suddenly. Why? More than 2,500 aged care patients are in hospital beds meant to accommodate the sick. State health ministers met the feds on Friday of last week to find a solution. It's simple. Prioritise state spending. More aged care, home packages. People want to stay at home. Of course they do. And aged care services and facilities as well. Now, I say the states because while the federal government health department is huge, I must Google that and find out just how many people work for them. But it has no hospitals, no patients. Here's an idea. Scrap the Federal Department of Health. You'll save a mozza. In fact, just think how much money we could save if we got rid of all the state-federal duplication stuff. And while I'm on a roll, if I'm not thinking too big, let's just get rid of Canberra altogether. Wow! Hell's bells. Roy Morgan Research have come up with, it's a great company, Roy Morgan. I think he's sort of more or less retired. He's got other people running it, but it still carries his proud name and that of his father. Roy Morgan Research, they've come up with our most trusted brand survey results. And it's interesting. Bunnings is top of the poll. Then if I get these right, forgive me if I'm getting them out of order, but up there at the top, ALDI, Kmart, Apple, Toyota, Australia Post, and I think Myer was next. Least trusted brands in Australia: Woolies, Coles, Qantas, and Optus. Banks were the biggest sliders, losing popularity. So too the ABC. What makes a brand trustworthy? There are a lot of famous brands. You know, I was looking around to try and buy some Kiwi polish the other day for my boots. Kiwi shoe polish, fantastic brand, Australian brand, with a New Zealand Kiwi on the lid, but that doesn't matter. Famous brand, you can't buy it, doesn't exist, closed up, gone. Gone the way of the dodo. I personally believe that it's usually because of the 12-year-old in the marketing department. But that's just my opinion. The Victorians now have a treaty with their First Nation, meaning Aboriginal people. Wow. A separate Chamber of Parliament. Now that makes three separate bureaucracies as well. This is all for less than 1% of the population of Victoria. At what cost for the poor, bankrupt people of the state of Victoria, bankrupt thanks to Labor? unbelievably, apparently, still with a chance of winning the election next year. Go figure. This nonsense was put before the Australian people with the Voice referendum, great expense, $500 million or something. It was decided democratically that the majority didn't want this country to be divided by race. Well, in Victoria, South Australia, Labor has said, stuff that, we'll do it anyway. This treaty sets up a system of apartheid, a state separated on racial grounds. Enough to stir, I would think, human rights organisations, the United Nations, but oh no, 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 no. This third chamber of state parliament is only for Aboriginal people, which is racist in itself, pure and simple. It will look at all decisions and legislation that affects Aboriginal people. Well, that means all legislation, doesn't matter what colour you are, it affects us all, everything. Labor has set up an argument, an arrangement, which will slow everything down. We need less bureaucracy and less red tape. Now, who are the people in this third chamber? How are they selected? On what authority? For what term? What are they paid? Be honest. They will review every piece of legislation. Why don't you come out and say that? My guess is yes, they will. Are these people really Aboriginal, or do they just claim Aboriginality? A First Nations treaty. What nation was that? 280 separate Aboriginal tribes. Separate languages, customs, no nation, first or otherwise. The Libs should immediately announce that upon winning office, if they win office, they will chuck this expensive, wasteful, unnecessary, racist nonsense out the door. Repeal the whole damn thing on day one. The Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, was scheduled to drop into Vanuatu early Wednesday morning to sign a deal which would provide these guys with $500 million. Our dollars. Didn't quite get to sign the paper. They're playing, oh, I don't know. Is it called hard to get? I don't know. Maybe they want more. Do you know what the money is for? Climate resilience. What the hell is climate resilience? More likely it's a bribe to stop the Chinese cozying up more closely. Why is it Australia's responsibility to soothe their anxieties over climate change when Australia contributes so little to global emissions and imagined consequences? If you want to ask somebody for $500 million for climate resilience, don't ask us, ask the Chinese. They are the ones who create 30% of global emissions, not us. The oceans are not rising. This is all nonsense. Very expensive nonsense. A con. And that our Prime Minister is going along with it at our expense is disgraceful. Many of the clapped out, corrupt South Pacific Island nations met last week, 17 of them. Anthony Albanese was there, flew straight in from Fiji and Honiara. No, he went to Honiara. It gets very confusing in that neck of the woods. He came into Honiara, Solomon Islands. Much of the infrastructure that he saw was provided, of course, by the Chinese. Then you can't tell me that there are no strings attached to any of that. But the bizarre thing is that he has agreed to give them, in the Solomon Islands, $100 million. Now, this is on top of, separate from, the $500 million I was talking to you about before. He's going to give them $100 million for climate compensation for our measly 1% of global emissions. China, as I've just said, 30% of climate emissions, and they get away scot-free. Could we not point that out to them? Why aren't we putting or getting them to put the hard word on the Chinese? I'll tell you why. You can't con the Chinese as easily as you can con the Australian government. Jason Clare, the Education Minister, announced during the week the 4 huge federal educational bureaucracies are going to be rolled into one enormous educational bureaucracy. Can you imagine? This new department is going to be called the Teaching and Learning Commission. Don't know if you heard about it or read about it. They're not making a big thing about it. They don't want to. It's sleight of hand, 3 thimbles and a P. Of course you would think to yourself, this is going to do away with inefficiencies and duplication and cut the number of people involved and therefore the cost. But no such luck. Keep in mind that the Federal Education Department, a bit like the Health Department, the Federal Education Department does nothing that is not being done by the equally large state-based education and health departments, which at least have schools and institutions of learning and hospitals and nurses and doctors. I wonder what the Canberra Teaching and Learning Commission is actually going to do except cost us a fortune. Speaking of our money, the lights just went out. All right, we don't normally do edits. You'll be happy or you'll be concerned to hear that music and art therapy, whatever that is back on the books of the NDIS. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, at $156 an hour. It used to be $194 an hour. Well, the music and art therapists united and started to complain. Well, I'll bet they did. Whoa, what a rort. The whole thing is an unsustainable disgrace, and it's right up there with talk therapy. Now, that's not speech therapy. That's well and truly covered by the NDIS at $194 an hour. Talk therapy is different. That is where somebody comes along and talks at you or talks to you or talks with you and gets paid by the taxpayer $194 an hour. Now, a friend of mine tells an amazing story. I've got no reason to believe it's not true because I've heard many similar stories. A person who was at one of these adult places, you know, pole position or crazy horse or checkmates, or I don't profess to admit that I know any of them. I've driven past them, I've never stopped. Anyway, it's true. Anyway, he was in there. He noticed a young lady with an older gentleman, and they got to talking. A little embarrassed, the young woman explained that she was an NDIS worker. In fact, she was at work. Well, curious, my friend started to talk to her about this, question her. She was with a client, or a patient, the elderly gentleman, who had managed to somehow con the NDIS into not only paying for his twice-a-week visit to the strip club, but somehow somebody to take him there. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, this was his therapy. Seems the only thing you need to be a therapist approved by the NDIS at $194 an hour is that you are a member of an association. Okay. And the whole $48 billion scandal should be closed down immediately. Now, I'm going to check this out. I reckon I got a brainwave here. I reckon I could be a talk therapist. I reckon I could. I've got the experience. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, this is not a show. It's not a program. It's not a posting. Everyone watching or listening to this is a patient of mine. There's thunder outside, Pete.
Somebody's listening.
God, possibly. You're all patients. That's it. You're a patient, not an audience. Now, let me think of this. 50,000 times 194 per hour per program. Why didn't I think of this before? Hell, if you can't beat them, join them. Now, if there was a tribute, say the Julia Gillard Memorial Award for the most creative way to rot the government, I think JeremyCordeaux.com, talk therapist, could get a medal. Are you with me? Are we seriously going to let this go on and on and on? Tomorrow morning, 9 to 12, live streaming on the show, we have Rachel McCall, psychotherapist. Whoa! She'll be in about 10:30. Professor John Crompton, AM, from the Adelaide Children's Hospital, there for many years. The great Robbie Brecken from the news. A lot of fun, a lot of stuff. JeremyCordeaux.com, 9 to 12. I hope you will join us. Now, we're here with the best wishes of the rising sun. 60 Bridge Street at Kensington, and you won't have any trouble finding it if you drive down or up Norwood Parade or Kensington Road. The council have very kindly put a nice big sign at the end of Bridge Street, both ends of Bridge Street, saying, "This way to the rising sun." I think that's a very helpful council. Anyway, the telephone number at the Rising Sun is 8333-0721. Grant and Jackie will take good care of you if you're launching a product, having a nice romantic lunch or dinner for two, a wedding reception, a product launch, doesn't matter. Often chosen as the best pub in South Australia. You can't beat it. The Rising Sun and Elder Fine Art, our other sponsor, Melbourne Street, North Adelaide, with another really big auction. He has 3 or 4 a year. If you have a painting and you'd like it appraised, you're thinking of selling it, Jim will be able to give you a very accurate, free appraisal of that painting, and it might sway you one way or the other. You don't know. Telephone number 8267-2869. He's always looking for notable, interesting paintings. Now, I've got to say goodbye, but I will give you some birthday wishes. Hey, it's my birthday today. It is.
Happy birthday.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Jeremy Nicholas Merivale Frederick Cordeaux, born this day in 1945. What else happened? Caroline says, it's my birthday, gifts can be mailed to... Oh, not appropriate. Cheeky! No, Frankie Avalon. His real name is Francis Avalone. 1940, American actor, Beach Party, Grease, pop singer, Venus. Born 1940, still going strong, that's good. First edition of the New York Times is published. It cost 2 cents a copy. 1851. American actress, singer Debbie Reynolds, 23, weds American singer Eddie Fisher. Oh Mine Papa. And a lot of other wonderful songs. He was 27, she was 23. They divorced in 59. Eddie Fisher. 1955 they got married. Britain's first twin-engine aeroplane. It was a short S-39, whatever that is, test flown this day in 1911. Charles Lewis Tiffany and John B. Young co-found a stationery and fancy goods emporium in New York City, later renamed in 1853 as Tiffany and Company. Bet you they didn't have an armed guard standing at the doorway of the stationery and fancy goods emporium. Yeah, they decidedly went upmarket. Greta Garbo, famous for saying, I want to be alone, born in Stockholm in Sweden. She died in 1990. One of the people I would have loved to have talked to. Greta Garbo, Swedish actress, Hollywood silent film star. Anna Karenina, Grand Hotel, Camille, born this day, 18th of September, 1905. Samuel Johnson, English scholar and lexicographer, a dictionary of the English language, 1709. And the wonderful Derek Nemo. I have a picture of Derek over there. He came into the studio at 5DN many years ago. He's not with us anymore. Lovely man, though, Derek Nemo. The quintessential American minister, priest, yes, wonderful character actor. All gas and gators. Born in Liverpool, died in 1999, born 1930. And Tupperware brands, makers of plastic kitchenware since 1948, files for bankruptcy in Florida on this day in 1924. Again, I blame the 12-year-old in the marketing department.
2024.
Did I say 10? What did I say?
1924.
No, it wasn't. It was 2024.
Yeah. Go on.
Yep, 2024. Perfectly right. Thank you for picking that up, Pete. Thanks for being with us. See you in the morning. 9 o'clock, live streaming, jeremycordeaux.com. Believe in yourself. Thank you for viewing the Court of Public Opinion, and bye for now.